Deadlift or a hinge is defined by how far back your hips can go. As soon as your hips stop moving backwards, that is the end of your depth here, okay? So, there are many things to think about, so we're gonna break it down. First thing is your stance. Your stance is going to be uniquely your own, so play with where you want to have your feet, both distance apart from each other and also the angle at which they are pointed out, okay? Most women are going to need more outward angle than men, just based on the way that our anatomy of our hips is, okay? Second of all, we want to keep our knees roughly in the same time and space that they exist right now, which means that the angle that exists comes from our hips moving backwards, not our knees moving forwards. So, grab a dowel or a broomstick, we're gonna place it against our body, it's going to remain against our body, and our arms are gonna stay straight the entire time. We're going to start by trying to close a car door with our butt, like when we have too many groceries in our hands and we try to like, boop, the car door closed, that. So we're going to try to sink our hips backwards, and that dowel, just by, natural, will come down our legs because our arms will be moving towards our feet. Then we're gonna come all the way back up until we're back straight. Now, if you've gotten to the point of doing a hinge or a deadlift, we've probably gone over doing some of the core engagement and how to stack your core. So we want to make sure our ribs are stacked over top of our pelvis. If your pelvis is anteriorly tilted and your ribs are flared upward, or your back is an extension, we are not stacked. So if your ribs are up and your pelvis is down, we kind of got this like open scissor thing going on here. We want to make sure that we have stacked those things so that they are right on top of each other. So ribs will sit right on top of the pelvis, okay? So a little bit of a pelvic tilt, a little bit of those tucking the ribs, or feeling like you are not in extension with the spine here. Now, I'm gonna get you to put your thumb on the bottom of the ribs and your index finger or your middle finger on the top of your pelvis. That space needs to remain the same through this entire movement as you sink backwards and as you move back into your starting position. So that engagement here needs to remain. So core is going to stay engaged, and we're going to allow ourselves to sink back and keep that same distance in between the ribs and the pelvis. If you find that you end up here, you know that you have opened up from the ribs, okay? Our femur is in a fixed position here, which means that our femur is sitting like this, and our pelvis is over top of it. As we go into a hinge movement, the pelvis will rotate over top of the femur. So if you can imagine that, pelvis is here, and as we move forward, the pelvis is going to move over top of that femur bone. So we want to maintain the top of the pelvis and the base of the ribs. Getting back to that dowel, standing in this position, core engaged, shoulders back and down, trying to put your shoulder blades in your back pockets. Or you can feel like you're trying to bend, snap this bar in half. We're going to engage the core. We're going to solidly place our feet into the floor. Think big toe, small toe, and heel are solidly placed on the ground. And then we're going to start to sink those hips backwards. See, knees are staying roughly in place and time. My hips have stopped moving backwards, which means if I were to try to get more depth here, watch my lower back, all of that depth would be coming from the spine. None of that has come from my hips or my legs, which are really the primary target here. Ideally, we are trying to lengthen this tissue down the back portion of our leg or our glute. So we want this to be what gets the stretch. So as you move backwards and you hinge with those hips and you push them back, if you feel like you're trying to push into the ground and spread the earth, you're trying to create a tear between your legs, you will feel probably a little bit more of that engagement along the side of your glutes. Now that tissue is on length, we need to contract that to bring you back up to the top position. When you get up to your top, you want to squeeze the glutes. Squeezing the glutes is not extending through the spine. Squeezing the glutes is literally just engaging the glute muscles that we are using as we stretch them and then as we contract them. This will take some practice. focusing on all those different pieces, all those different cues, all the different parts of your body, and really just repetition. Record yourself doing this so you can see what it looks like, and really just continue to play around with it until you can feel where you want to feel that engagement.